Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, two Dodgers finished in the top three in the National League MVP voting. Neither won, but that's what we expected. We'll talk about that. Also, a future Dodger won it in the American League. We'll touch on that a little bit. We'll talk about a former Dodgers MVP who is now a free agent and could potentially be coming back to the LA outfield. And we will talk about the Dodgers making their first signing of free agency, but probably not the big splash that we're all looking forward to. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And this episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And Vince, the final awards of award season were announced on Thursday. As we expected, it turns out there were no surprises. Like we talked about the other day, Manager of the Year was the only one with surprises. In the Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and MVP voting, 0 surprises. In fact, both MVP races, the winner was unanimous. Shohei Ohtani in the American League, Ronald Acuña in the National League. And I think that was clearly the right decision in the American League and also the right decision in the National League. Not quite as clear, but I think unanimous for Acuña is reasonable because we made the case in late August that Mookie Betts was the front runner at that point, but then Acuña had a much better September than Mookie did, and so really the main drama going into award season was solved for us a week or two ago when we found out that Freddie Freeman was in the top 3. That was really the only question, was Freeman or Matt Olson in third place, and which one would come in fourth. And so, were you surprised that Acuña was unanimous?
I wasn't surprised. I figured it might be. I thought there'd be one voter that would just give it to Mookie for whether old school or versatility, whatever the case was. But I wasn't surprised that it was unanimous, and I think it makes Mookie the first unanimous second place winner. So it's a notch on his belt. Yeah,
all 30 ballots had Acuña in first place and Mookie in second place. And when we had the guys from Cespedes Family Barbecue on a month or two ago, we talked about that. It's kind of nice that everyone in the world agrees that Mookie and Acuña are the top 2 players in the National League, and we saw that it was literally unanimous. I think I would have been more surprised if it wasn't unanimous in both of those. Like if Freeman had snuck in a second place vote, I would have been more surprised, I think, than what we actually had in the results. And Mookie would have been a defensible choice. I mean, you look at WAR, Mookie actually had a higher WAR than Ronald Acuña, which means by at least some measurements, Mookie had a better season. But a lot of Mookie's WAR, his value comes from defense. And MVP has always been an offense-first award, almost always. Maybe a few times defense has pushed somebody over the top of the edge. But with Acuña having his historic season with homers and stolen bases, I think Mookie would have had to have a healthy lead in WAR to make up for the historic nature of Acuña's season. And, I don't think historic is necessarily a good reason to vote for an MVP because plenty of things are historic that aren't MVP worthy. But it was historic and a great season. It was Acuña had the best offensive season in the National League, and the defense for Mookie. It's not even like Mookie was Andrelton Simmons at his peak kind of defender. Mookie was a very good defender, but he was a Gold Glove finalist at 2 different positions. But in the end, the offense for Acuña won out, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, and then you do go down to Freeman and Olson, and it was very, very, very close. Freddie Freeman ended up with 17 third place votes and 13 fourth place votes, and Matt Olson had 13 third place votes and 17 fourth place votes. So a difference of just 4 points on the bracket, which honestly I think was a little closer than even I thought.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We mentioned first and second place were both unanimous. I would guess is also the first time that the same 4 guys were the top 4 spots on all 30 ballots. The third and fourth place, people had a harder time deciding between the 2 first basemen, but having the same 4 guys, nobody except the top 4 guys got a top 4 vote, which is kind of remarkable. In the American League, Shohei Ohtani was the unanimous winner. His second unanimous win. He's the first player ever to have 2 unanimous MVP awards. And Corey Seager finished second. And Seager had a great season, but Seager also missed even more time than Ohtani did. Honestly, I think that Ohtani probably would have won the MVP award even if he wasn't a pitcher too. Like just based on the offense, I think Ohtani probably would have won the MVP. And then you throw in the fact that he was an elite pitcher. It was just a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean that one. What took last year from Judge, and like you said, not all historic is MVP worthy, but what it took to beat Ohtani out last year was a historic season from Aaron Judge. And I'm sure a little bit of Yankees made playoffs and Angels didn't, which isn't that's really the only knock on Ohtani is that he's been playing on a bad team all these years that isn't over 500, but that's more of a older knock. Although there's still some voters that are old anyways. So, but yeah, I mean, that's basically what it's going to come down to almost every year. Ohtani is relatively healthy for the most part on both sides. Is going to take some kind of historic year.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you saw the stat that in the 4 major U.S. sports, only twice in history has a player on a sub 500 team been a unanimous MVP winner, and both times it's been Shohei Ohtani. It's never happened to anybody else in baseball or in the NFL, NBA, or NHL. And the other sports make sense because usually the MVP goes to a scorer in those leagues, because in those sports you can choose who gets the ball at any given moment or the puck, as the case may be. In baseball, you can't. And so, it's not always, it's a lot easier to be a bad team with a truly elite player in baseball, because in basketball, if you have Michael Jordan, you give Michael Jordan the ball. If you have Kobe Bryant, you give Kobe Bryant the ball. If you have Tom Brady, you let Tom Brady throw the ball. But in baseball, you have Shohei Ohtani. Okay, well, he's going to get to bat 4 times, and if it's the 5th day, he's pitching, or 6th day, whatever it is with Ohtani. So yeah, baseball is an interesting sport, and but still, doing something that's never been done before, that's historic. So I think Ohtani automatically wins next year's MVP because of the history he set this year.
And maybe next year Dodge will have first, second, and third.
Yeah, next year he'll win that MVP. That become only the second player ever to win the MVP in both leagues with the LA Angels and then the actual LA team next year. So that's what we're counting on. There's another former Dodgers MVP named Cody Bellinger. He won the MVP 4 years ago, and he is now a free agent after spending 1 year with the Cubs. We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the possibility of Bellinger making a return to Los Angeles and where he would fit in. So that's what's coming up. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Jase Case. We spend a lot of time together on this podcast, 5 days a week, half-hour a day. That's 2.5 hours a week that we are talking Dodgers with you. We have a lot of fun getting fired up about MVP voting and during the season wins and losses, all sorts of stuff. But we also have some more serious stuff to talk about, and that is Jase Case. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered. Thanks to our partners at Jase Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Revatio prescriptions, you can get those through Jase Medical. So go online right now at Jase Medical to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. And they are a sponsor, but I want you to know I actually have the Jase Case. I had never heard of them before they became a sponsor, but I got my Jase Case. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. And I ordered mine, and now I have these 5 life-saving antibiotics that are with my emergency kit. So I have the peace of mind of knowing that even in emergency, my family will have access to the medicine that they might need. So if you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code Locked On for $20 off your purchase at jasemedical.com, JASE medical.com. Hey, we're back. We want to thank you so much for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers, those of you who are with us 5 days a week for a half hour every morning. We love talking Dodgers with you. If you're not an everydayer, go ahead and just subscribe, become one just by watching or listening every weekday morning. I need to sneeze. Vince, say more about being an everydayer.
Yeah, every day is cool. You get to hear about whatever's going on with the Dodgers, and if there's not something specifically going on with the Dodgers, we're going to find something to talk about that can relate to the Dodgers. So
Absolutely. And that sneeze went away as soon as I announced it. So maybe all I needed to do was announce it. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comments section about the MVP voting, about what we're about to talk about with Cody Bellinger. Anything else, any other thoughts you have, let's hear it. And also remember, all off season, you can still check out SiriusXM and the SXM app for all your baseball and or Christmas music needs. Check out Jolly Christmas on the SXM app. It's a lot of fun. Or Country Christmas, which will be on your radio starting on December 6th. But right now it's only on the SXM app. That's what I listen to while I'm working during the day. So Cody Bellinger was a fan favorite in Los Angeles for 6 years. And then the Dodgers non-tendered him after last season. Was today the non-tender deadline? Thursday? Or is
Friday.
that Friday? Okay. I was going to say that slipped by, but no, there's still a chance Dodgers might non-tender some people this year. Last year, it was Cody Bellinger. He was going to make close to $20 million in arbitration. They chose not to do that. They tried to bring him back on a lesser contract, but he ended up getting about that much from the Cubs on a 1-year deal. And then he had a great bounce back season. I assume he got MVP votes. I actually didn't look at the down ballot. Where did Bellinger
finish fifth?
Fifth?
Yeah.
I thought Corbin Carroll was fifth.
Or he was sixth. He was
okay,
up there.
Somewhere in there. Okay. I might have just seen one person's ballot that had Carroll fifth, actually, now that I think about it.
No, he was further down, but he got votes.
Okay. So Bellinger had a great season, great bounce back season. And now he hits free agency. He's still young. He was born, if I remember right, either June or July of 1995. I know it was right after I graduated high school, which means that he is now 28 years old and, basically in his prime. And he and the Dodgers didn't really have an acrimonious breakup. The Dodgers chose to non-tender him, but from at least what we've seen publicly, there's not major hard feelings. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about the possibility of Bellinger coming back, the things that might be in the way there, but also, talking about Mookie Betts finishing second in the MVP voting. Mookie played a lot of second base this year. And I guess if I was making the case for Bellinger to come back, I think that case would involve Mookie Betts becoming the full-time second baseman for the Dodgers. Mookie is still a good defensive right fielder, but I don't think he's elite like he used to be in right field. And he's a very good second baseman. And he's talked about how much more restful it is. He likes being on the infield where he can talk to Freddie Freeman, have conversations instead of being alone in the outfield. I think Mookie would love to be the everyday second baseman. And if you could replace him with a guy like Cody Bellinger, it might be worth doing.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. I'll say the relationship between maybe Bellinger specifically and the Dodgers maybe is still okay, but between his agent and the Dodgers, not so much. There was that back and forth between Boris and Friedman between in the papers, as the old saying goes. And obviously that's one part of this that, I don't want to get too deep into it, but that is a part of it in bringing Bellinger back, that, Scott Boras does represent him. But yeah, in the terms of you get Bellinger to make Mookie a full-time second baseman, I think that's kind of what the Dodgers are looking at this offseason in terms of, the flexibility and versatility, and kind of what they were looking at during the trade deadline. Didn't quite work out that way specifically, but they have the ability to go after a top-tier outfielder. They have the ability to go after a top-tier shortstop. They have the ability to go after a top-tier second baseman. Any of those three spots they can really go after. and feel comfortable because Mookie can either stay in right field, Mookie can come into second base, or if Mookie stays in outfield, then Lux can move over to second base. Whatever the case is, they got a shortstop. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. But I do think in one of Mookie's podcasts, I think with Jazz Chisholm, they're talking about like the biggest difference between outfield and infield, and they both kind of said like running in from the outfield and back like 18 times a game, like you don't think about it, like we probably don't think about it, but they're like that's tiring, and you do that over 150 plus games, and that's a lot of extra wear and tear on the knee, even though it's not huge, but it is something. So yeah, I don't mind getting Mookie in the infield. He was very good, and Mookie's offensive stats as a second baseman surpass almost every other second baseman out there. Maybe him and Albies will be up there, and if they got a really good outfielder out of it, then it makes sense.
Yeah, when you talk about running back and forth from right field at Dodger Stadium, the Dodgers are in the third base dugout running out to right field. That's about a mile per game that they are jogging. It's if you figure it's about 300 feet from the dugout to his position in right field. Do that 18 times, and that is just at 5,400 feet, so just over a mile. And it's split up over 3 hours. Even I can do a mile over 3 hours, but I'd rather not, and I'm not going to feel as good afterwards as I would if I hadn't done it. And then you factor in also the base running and, actually running for fly balls and all that. It's a lot more work. And Mookie's not old, but he's 31 and he's under contract for another, 8 or 9 years. And so, Mookie's not going to be the right fielder forever. And right now might be as good a time as ever to make that full-time switch. When we talk about, Bellinger, obviously you mentioned Scott Boras. The agent works for the player, of course. And so if Belly wants to come back to the Dodgers, Boras won't stop him. But, the way we put it often on this podcast is when you hire Scott Boras to be your agent, it's because you are interested in getting the biggest contract possible. And the Dodgers generally don't give the biggest contract out. And Bellinger especially, seeing how bad he is when he's bad, like the fact that he was good in 2023 probably doesn't fill too many people with a ton of confidence is going to be great in 24, 25, and 26, let alone if he gets a 7-8 year deal because he is so young. Like there's a lot of risk there. And and Boras comes to all the Dodger games. Every time I'm at Dodger Stadium, I see Scott Boras. And so I don't think the relationship is super damaged, but the fact is the Dodgers very rarely sign Boras clients who are at free agency. And so, maybe Bellinger doesn't make sense from that standpoint. From a baseball standpoint in 2023, though, or 2024, he would make a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I've seen Bellinger and 200 million be paired together a few times in different, reports and things of that nature. And it's like, I don't know if I wouldn't feel comfortable giving him 200. Obviously, not our money, but like, as a someone that runs a baseball team, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting that much investment into Cody Bellinger. And I don't know. I'm sure someone's going to give him a bigger deal, long-term deal. But I definitely would want to see it at least one more time because, you look at Bellinger and he did have a really good bounce back year in terms of OPS plus. It was his third best season ever. And obviously he had 3 really good seasons with the Dodgers. 2 stand out more than the other, and then he had 3 mid to bad seasons with the Dodgers. And I think when it comes specifically to the Dodgers, we've seen there was rumblings, however true or not they may be, that Bellinger didn't really listen to hitting coaches or whatever the case was, blah blah blah, or maybe Bellinger just needed to go somewhere that it was different mentality, different in whatever the case is, or sometimes a change of scenery is something that is true. So yeah, if they could get Bellinger on a short-term deal, I wouldn't mind it. The longer you get, the more money you get. It's a little bit more risky, and I don't know if I would take that risk.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that Bellinger missed a month last season with injury, and after the injury, played as much first base as he did center field. And he hit well at times during that, but a lot of his best hitting came, when he was playing first base. And, the same the same things that apply to Mookie Betts apply to Cody Bellinger. And obviously Bellinger's a few years younger, but I think Belly, was it his back? I think it was a back injury that kept him out. And,
so.
A back injury, running back and forth from the outfield. And so if you look for a durable outfielder, maybe Bellinger's not the answer. I did see mentioned today that the Yankees have inquired with the Rays about Manuel Margot, which kind of tells you what the free agent market for outfielders look like, because Manuel Margot is not very good at baseball. And so, I look at it, and there's Tommy Pham, there's Lourdes Gurriel Jr., there's the guy from Korea, Lee, I can't remember his name now, but he's coming over from Korea. There's options in the outfield, but Cody Bellinger is definitely the best outfielder on the free agent market. The only question is, will he be good the whole time of his new contract?
Yeah.
So we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk some more about free agency, because the Dodgers actually made a signing, a little bit lackluster, but that doesn't mean it's bad. So we will be back to talk about Ricky Vanasco. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. We're back. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially you everydayers. We also want to tell you Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our own national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And if you're a fan of LA sports, there's also a Locked On Los Angeles Locked On Sports Los Angeles channel on YouTube. Again, it's also a 24/7. It includes this show, Locked On Angels, Locked On Lakers and Clippers and Rams and Chargers, and plus the national shows. A lot of Los Angeles content there on Locked On Sports Los Angeles. So subscribe to that 24/7. And remember, SiriusXM has you covered for baseball and Christmas music all off season on the radio or on the SXM app. Ricky Vanasco is a guy, it's been a weird ride for the last year. So Ricky Vanasco started the 2023 season in the Rangers organization. He pitched 2 games for Frisco, their AA team. Frisco is where Dude Perfect is based. I don't know if you know that. Frisco is a nice little town. Last time I went ice skating was in Frisco, Texas, believe it or not. And probably the last time of my life forever. He pitched two games, went 2 1/3 innings, allowed 6 earned runs. And the Rangers said, okay, that's enough. So he ended up with the Dodgers, and they moved him to relief, and he was outstanding in 29 innings between AA and AAA with the Dodgers. He allowed 4 earned runs in 29 innings. That's an ERA well below 2, below 1.5. Just looked great. Strikeout rate in AA in 23 2/3 innings, 36 strikeouts. That's 13.7 strikeouts per 9. The walk rate was reasonable, 3.4 walks per 9, a little higher than you want. He actually cut that in half in his brief time in AAA, but it seems like the move to the bullpen definitely helped him out. And then the Dodgers had outrighted him. They had DFA'd him and outrighted him during the season. And then he became a free agent a couple of weeks ago, but he just signed with the Dodgers on Thursday, a major league contract. Doesn't mean he'll be in the major leagues. It means he is on the 40-man roster. That's what a major league contract means. He does have 1 option year remaining. He's never pitched in the big leagues yet. And yet the Dodgers have now made multiple moves to keep him in the organization. And now they're committing to, you know what, you're going to be in the big leagues at some point in 2024, probably even on opening day. What are your thoughts on Ricky Vanasco, Vince?
Yeah, the deal, it's $900,000. I think JP Hornstra reported. So at the very least, if they DFA'd him before the season, they're not going to pay a lot for it. They've paid a lot more for a lot less in different years. It's interesting that, obviously they like him because they brought him over here. He performed well whenever, they did what they wanted to do with him. And I would imagine this was one of those where maybe Vanasco was, it seems like it's one of those where Vanasco was maybe looking for a team that he could pitch in the majors for sure, which is probably, a bad team, probably more than likely. And then the Dodgers don't want to lose him, so they throw him, almost $1 million to be on the big league roster for now, or on the 40-man roster for now, and then they can figure out the rest of their off season. So it's low risk, potential high reward. You get a reliever that can help out for cheap. It's when the Dodgers pick you up, when the Rays pick you up, when certain teams pick you up, it's probably for a reason. Obviously, the Dodgers had that reason and let him go and do his thing and probably showed him a few things. And they want to enjoy the fruits of their labor if that ends up being the case. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's we might say Vanasco's name a lot next year. We might never say his name. We might say his name a couple times before he gets outrighted or gets DFA'd. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm more confident about Ricky Vanasco making an impact than I was about Victor Gonzalez going into 2020. And that one turned out pretty well. I ended up having to eat a shoe, theoretically. Somebody called me out, said I'm no better than Mad Dog Russo because I said I'd eat a shoe, and but I do think that's different. That puts the Dodgers 40-man roster at 39 players right now, which means they currently only have one roster spot. Obviously, there's ways to open up roster spots, whether that's trades or releasings or non-tenders. And like we mentioned earlier, the non-tender deadline is today, Friday. And the Dodgers have a couple of guys who could be non-tendered, including that very same Victor Gonzalez. He's definitely a possibility to be non-tendered. Even Ryan Yarbrough, I would expect Yarbrough to be tendered a contract. And I guess clarification, what that means. Non-tender just means it's for guys who are not yet at free agency. The team has to decide, do we want to keep you for next year? And for some guys, that means at roughly the league minimum, or if they're arbitration eligible, to go to arbitration. And so Ryan Yarbrough is a guy who they will probably tender a contract to, if for no other reason that he probably has trade value at what he's likely to be paid and everything. But the Dodgers could open up a couple spots there. But it was kind of interesting to see them signing a guy like Vanasco. That I feel like they must believe in him quite a bit, because at a stage in the offseason where you're really thinking, okay, how can we open up some roster spots? They went and signed him to a big league deal. I think that probably speaks volumes about what they think about him.
Yeah, and like I said, it's one of those where if they go out and end up getting 2 starting pitchers and a reliever, let's just say, somehow they go out there and do that and they need a roster spot. Well, it was nice to know you, Ricky Vanasco. You got 900,000, and if you make it through waivers, you're more than welcome to come back and pitch in our minor league system until we need you again, type of deal. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously they believe in him. I do think Dodgers. Their one way to clear roster spots is kind of how the Braves did it, where they traded a bunch of guys on the 40-man roster for one player on the White Sox team, and they cleared a few roster spots that way. So that's also possible. Although I don't know how many teams have that many spots available right now, like the White Sox apparently did. But yeah, there's a few ways to do it, and I think the biggest thing for me with Ricky Vanasco is I just think of Ricky Nolasco, who the Dodgers had back in 2013 or 14, and yeah, like I said, it's one of those where it might be a Brandon Morrow type deal, or somebody of that nature that really stepped up and helped out. Or, we might just talk about him coming up on the Dodgers need an arm.
Yeah, let's call him the next Evan Phillips, right? Yeah, and I guess I should clarify, we're talking about trades and stuff. Last week when I talked about the Rule 5 draft and protecting guys for the Rule 5 draft, right after I got in record, I'm like, I don't know if I was as clear as I meant to be about that. And then first thing in the morning, I had an email from our buddy Joe Holt asking, I think it was Joe, some regular listener, sorry if it wasn't Joe, somebody else anyway, saying, did you say this right? And so I want to clarify, because I said that the rosters are kind of locked down after
I followed your lead too, and I said it on one of mine.
Well, and what that means is anybody who's eligible for the Rule 5 draft can't be traded at this point. So they can still make trades. The reason that it effectively shuts down trades is because most trades at this stage of the season or the off season involve prospects on one side or the other. There is the rare trade like the Braves and the White Sox pulled off that, is major leaguers for major leaguers or close to major leaguers. But often trades are going to be younger prospects. And so like the guys who the Dodgers can't trade right now are guys like Drew Avens and Ryan Ward and John Rooney, guys who are not on the 40-man roster, but are eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Those guys can't be traded right now. And so, but the Dodgers, if they get an offer they can't refuse for, Victor Gonzalez or Michael Grove or whatever, they can trade those guys. It's just the guys who are eligible for the Rule 5 draft. So want to clarify that because I was saying it right in my head, but my mouth didn't say the words right. So I'm sorry for leading you astray, Vince.
It's all right.
I think that's about all we have for today. You got anything else?
Got nothing else. We get to the weekend and one week closer to the winter meeting. So
awesome. If you are looking for baseball content or even sports content, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. Just search for that, subscribe to that. You're sitting at work, just have it on in the background. It's great. You can just catch up on all the sports news that you want. Or if you just care about Los Angeles sports, search for Locked On Sports Los Angeles is what it's called on YouTube. It's 24/7. Us and other Locked On hosts talking about the sports in Los Angeles. So check those out. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially everydayers. We really appreciate you. If you're not an everydayer, become one. It's super fun. You get to listen to us every day. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also add us if you want. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Have a good one.